RadioNOW 100.9's Indy Connection with Emily Metheny.
Hello, I'm Emily Metheny, your host. Earlier this week, I had the opportunity to talk with Jody Blankenship, President and CEO of the Indiana Historical Society. We talked about the Madam C.J. Walker exhibit that is leaving in April and the newly opened Eva Kor exhibit that opened this week. Jody also shared more about the You Are There exhibits and the archives that people can visit and so much more. We started our conversation by Jody introducing the Indiana Historical Society. So, Jody, to start, can you tell us a little bit about the Indiana Historical Society?
Yeah, so the Indiana Historical Society was actually founded in 1803. It's a private, meaning non-governmental, nonprofit that is a membership organization. So anybody can become a member, but you don't have to be a member to come here. You can just come on by. We're located at 450 West Ohio Street, and we have a parking facility, which is parking is free with admission, and that is right off of New York and West Streets. And so when you come to the Eugene and Marilyn Glick Indiana History Center, which is where the Indiana Historical Society is, we have a library, an archive, which we have more than 8 million items in our collection that document Indiana's past. And you can see any of those things that you want. So if you come into our library, you can talk to our staff there, tell them what you're looking for, whether you're doing family history research or just trying to find information about the house you live in or the neighborhood you're at or your town. There's a good chance we've got something, we can help you find it. In addition, we have a number of exhibits available. So there are ones on Madam C.J. Walker. Our newest one is on Eva Kor, on Jeanette Records, which is in Richmond, Indiana, and on the bicentennial of Indianapolis. And then while you're here, if you'd like, we have a store where you can buy great things that are made in Indiana or about Indiana. And we have the Stardust Terrace Café by Jonathan Byrd, which is a wonderful place to stop and have lunch or just pick up a snack while you're here.
Mm-hmm. And you guys are right next to Canal, too. So if someone's walking down the canal, they can stop by the Stardust Café and the Historical Society.
You are 100% correct. We're right on the canal. We have an entrance right off of it. So if you're on the canal and you're walking by, you can come right into actually the Stardust Café by Jonathan Byrd, and that's where you would enter, and you can go upstairs to see some of the exhibits and library, or right there on the canal level, grab a bite to eat and something to drink.
Excellent. And you mentioned some exhibits. So to start, the Madam C.J. Walker exhibit's been open for a little while, but if someone hasn't made it to this interactive exhibit, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, so I would encourage you to come as quickly as you can because it's actually closing in April. We'll have another exhibit that'll open in the physical location where the Madam C.J. Walker exhibit is. But that exhibit is one that we're extremely proud of and we're happy to share with Hoosiers. So it talks about Madam C.J. Walker from her youth and growing up in Louisiana as a laundress to then building a business empire here in Indianapolis and other places, but really we focus on the Indianapolis piece. And we look at three elements of Madam C.J. Walker's life. The first is her business acumen, how she built this business, the strategy she employed, the products she developed, how she worked with her labor force and built that. The second piece we talk about is her philanthropic efforts. So Madam C.J. Walker, at least in Indianapolis, but even beyond Indianapolis, is responsible for so many nonprofits here in the city. So whether that was the Senate Avenue YMCA or so many other places that Madam Walker helped fund and get started. And then the third piece we look at is how she dealt with racism and misogyny. So as an African-American woman who was building a business and lived in many parts of the country, what kind of racism and misogyny did she face at different places? And how did that look as she gained wealth and power? How did that change? And what did she do to deal with that or to fight back against it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this exhibit, as you said, is open until April, so it would be a wonderful time to visit, especially during Women's History Month.
You got it, yes. Mm-hmm. It's a great time to visit. And our exhibits are something different. So we call them You Are Theirs. So when you walk into the exhibit, we have what we call our content room, which looks like a relatively traditional exhibit. It's, walls and objects and documents and photographs, and you learn about Madam C.J. Walker's life. But then there's a second piece where you actually walk into a space that we recreated from a real photograph of Madam C.J. Walker's office. And it looks exactly as Madam Walker's office did. And we have actors in that space portraying different people who would have been around, from Madam C.J. Walker, Freeman Ransom, her attorney, Violet Reynolds, her assistant, who then goes on to become the president of the Madam C.J. Walker Company, and salespeople and other folks who would have been around at that time. And you can interact with them and talk to them, ask them questions. They'll tell you about what it was like to work and live in Indianapolis at that time from their perspective.
That's amazing. And this is for all ages, isn't it?
It is. So whether you are an adult coming to see it, or you're bringing your children and your family with you, it'll work for everybody. Our actors are trained to interact with everybody from young children at 3 or 4 years old up to senior citizens. In fact, when we opened this event, I brought my niece, who was pretty young at the time, she still is, to the event, and I think she had a blast talking to the Madam Walker character. She even had her phone out and was looking up Madam Walker online and talking to the actors in the space to see if they knew what she was finding online and to correct some of the information that was not correct online.
That's amazing. So you're able to fully interact and really understand her story.
Absolutely. Yep.
Excellent. And also, so coming up, we do have the opening of the Eva Kor experience. Can you talk a little bit about Eva Kor and the opening?
Yes, so we are so excited about this exhibit opening for a couple reasons. First, I think it's been 18 months since we've had a live exhibit opening, so we're excited to get everybody back into the museum and to have one of these openings again, which is really a celebration of the life and the accomplishments of the Hoosiers that we are exploring in these exhibitions. And this one about Eva Kor is particularly interesting for us because just before her death, we had nominated and given Eva Kor what we call, it's our annual award. It's called the Indiana Living Legends Award, where we honor Hoosiers who have made significant impacts to Indiana, to the nation, and to the world. And Eva was one of those people. And shortly after winning this award, she passed away, and her son, Alex, gave us a collection of her personal materials to be preserved by the Indiana Historical Society. And then not long after that, Ted Green Films and WFYI donated the footage from the Eva Kor documentary that they did and a virtual reality experience to the IHS as well, so we could continue to make use of those with schools and visitors. So from that, we decided to make this exhibition. Now, we use a national advisory group of scholars and experts and people who knew Eva and worked with her. And now we have this great exhibit that will be open to the public beginning this Saturday, March 12th. And when you come and see this, it follows Eva's life from a child being arrested and interred at Auschwitz, the experimentation she went through, and then her life after that, once the camp was liberated, her time in Israel, meeting her husband Mickey, coming to Terre Haute, and her advocacy to bear witness that the Holocaust occurred, and to deal with the long-term emotional, psychological, and physical impacts of the torture and experimentation that was done to her. While you're there, not only do you learn about Eva's life, but we have that the virtual reality experience, so you can put on the goggles and the handsets and take a tour of Auschwitz with Eva. It was recorded before she passed away, and so you get to see that space through her eyes and with her. In addition to that, we've got a partner exhibition with that we teamed up with Candle's Holocaust Museum and Education Center, which is in Terre Haute, founded by Eva Kor. And this is called Dimensions and Testimony. And so it's a holographic image of Eva that's voice interactive. So you can go into this space, it looks like Eva's sitting there in front of you, and you can talk to her and she'll respond. You can ask her questions, everything from what's your favorite color, and if you know Eva, you know it's this particular shade of blue, to what was it like to be in Auschwitz, and she will answer you and talk to you and tell you all about her experience. We're very excited about this particular exhibition just because of the collection that's here, who Eva was, her international impact, and then also the fantastic partnerships that we put together to make it possible.
Mm-hmm. And on that note of partnerships, is this common when the Indiana Historical Society is doing something that different organizations and different people step forward with more pieces for you to preserve?
Yeah, so that's one of the more interesting, sometimes frustrating, but also fascinating pieces of history is, it's always difficult to find the whole story, right? Mm-hmm. As people, we like things to be simple and obvious, and it never is. So history is like a great detective novel, right? You're always looking for information, for different perspectives, for that piece of evidence that tells you more about the person, the event, the place. And so as we begin to do exhibits like this, they really take years to put together. Mm-hmm. And they begin with a thesis, an idea, and we explore that through research and looking for items both in our collection and at our partner organizations around the state, around the country, sometimes internationally, and piece together the story in all of its complexity and nuance. But we try to do so in a narrative that's compelling, that's understandable, that people can easily grasp and see both the drama and the heroism and sometimes, the tragedy that's involved in these things. So as we begin a process like this and over the years that it takes place, we're often teaming up with partners really all over the country, sometimes all over the world, to find evidence, documents, objects, photographs that tell these stories. And it's a fun activity, but it is one that takes a lot of time, a lot of attention. And I'm so grateful that we have incredible staff here at the Indiana Historical Society who do a wonderful job making these stories come to life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if someone is looking to come in and experience the Eva Kor exhibition or visit the Madam C.J. Walker exhibition as well before the end of the month, as soon as Eva's opens as well, how long should people plan to experience both of these exhibits and everything else you have?
Well, yeah, so that's a tough question, but I'd give yourself at least 2 hours at a minimum. If you're like me and you like to read every label in the exhibit, it can take you a lot longer. But I think for most people, 2 to 3 hours is sufficient. And luckily, if you come here in the morning, we open at 10 o'clock. We typically close around 5. We're open Tuesday through Saturdays. If you'd get here maybe 10, 11, 12, you can start to see the museum, take a break and have some lunch or a snack, and then go back out and see some more of it. So, like I said, besides the exhibits, we have an archive and library. So while you take in an exhibit, like maybe you see the Eva Kor exhibit or the Madam C.J. Walker exhibit, afterwards, I'd really encourage folks to go into the library because the IHS not only has Eva's personal papers that were donated by her son, mm-hmm. but we also have the largest collection of Madam C.J. Walker company materials anywhere in the world. And so you can go beyond the exhibition and see the material that our staff used to build that exhibition, the knowledge that the exhibition came from, and then also just experience the stuff firsthand. I mean, you can hold it, you can take photos of it on your phone. It's there for you.
So you mentioned the archives and maybe some family history, maybe the history of your home. How does that aspect work if someone's coming in? Do they need to talk to someone? How can they start that process if they're interested in this?
Yes, sure. So that's a great question. If you're interested in seeing something in particular at the library, we encourage you to call ahead because with 8 million items, there are things that we may or may not have, but there may be things that will help you in your search, but you just may not be aware even exists. So we ask people or encourage them to call ahead and make an appointment and speak with one of our collections folks, our archivists or librarians, and they can begin to help you identify the materials that you may be looking for. And they'll pull the stuff, and when you come in for a visit, it's right there for you. So you can come on into the library. We don't allow things like ink pens, or you can't bring a can of soda or a cup of coffee in with you to that space. But you'll sit down. There's a wonderful space, a great room where you get to sit down, where you can bring in pencils and your phone and anything you need, and take a look at this material. You can spend as much time as you'd like with it.
And so if someone's planning a trip, what other exhibits, what other opportunities do you have at the Indiana Historical Society, Jody?
Yeah, so there are two other exhibits besides Eva Kor and Madam C.J. Walker that you can take advantage of. The first one is called Jeanette Studio, and this is a great story about a record studio in Richmond, Indiana. They used to make, it was the Star Piano Company, and they were making pianos, but as the record player came about and people started buying records, they transitioned into becoming a record company. And some of the most amazing recording artists of the time were recorded by Jeanette Studios in Richmond, Indiana. So, of course, Hoagy Carmichael, but also Louis Armstrong and many others, who they would travel through and they would record a record there at Jeanette, and then they turn around and sell it. And so it's just an amazing story about this wasn't in New York, it wasn't in Los Angeles, it wasn't even down in New Orleans. This is a studio right here in Indiana that recorded some of the great musicians of the 20th century. Another exhibit that we're really proud of, and that'll be going down also in April, is an exhibit on the bicentennial of Indianapolis. So if you have been paying attention, there's a little dispute over whether the bicentennial was in 2020 or 2021, but we spanned those years, and this exhibit looks at 200 years of Indianapolis's history, from early settlements to just not too long ago, to maybe 20 years ago. And we explore it through the geography of the city, education, arts and culture, transportation, and so many other aspects. So you get a real idea of how Indianapolis developed and grew over time. And it's a great primer for understanding the history of this city.
Excellent. And Jody, as we start to wrap up, is there anything that you'd like to also highlight?
Yeah, so one more space I forgot to talk about, or would like to talk about, is our Cole Porter room. So I'm sure most Hoosiers know Cole Porter is from Indiana, and he's one of our favorite sons. So we have a space here at the Indiana Historical Society that is dedicated to Cole, and you can come on in. You can see some of his original artifacts that are on display, and you can hear a singer singing Cole Porter songs any time of the day. So we're really excited about that space. People love it. It's a chance in between exhibitions or really just to celebrate Cole, where you can come in, have a seat, and enjoy some beautiful music.
Excellent. And earlier you mentioned with Eva Kor's, it's the first live opening you've had since the pandemic started. What has that experience been, going from the pandemic kind of coming into the after parts of it now? What is that experience like?
Yeah, in some ways it feels very familiar and nostalgic. It's hard to imagine that we've been doing this now for 2 years. And so at the same time, things feel familiar, like opening exhibitions like we had, prior to March 2020. And we're excited to get ready to do that again. It's familiar. We love it. It's a great time to be at the Historical Society. But it's also a little nerve-wracking because we haven't done it in so long. And I think it'll be a great event. I'm very confident in the staff. And if anybody wants to come on out and join us, we're happy to have you here. But during the pandemic, we were able to do a number of things that we knew we would eventually do, but we maybe just didn't get to them yet. And so even right now, we just launched a whole series of digital exhibitions. And if you go to our website, which is indianahistory.org, you can see digital exhibitions about Camp Atterbury, Madam C.J. Walker, African-American, Latino, and Asian history in the state. There's all kinds of things you can explore. And that is content that we developed over time for a variety of exhibitions. And because either they're no longer up and you can't see them in person, or they soon will be going away, such as the Madam C.J. Walker exhibit, for example, we wanted to make sure that that content was still available to Hoosiers. And whether you're a teacher teaching this topic in your classroom, or you're just a history enthusiast who wants to know more about a particular time, place, or topic, those are now available for everybody. And that's the type of thing we got into quite a bit during the pandemic, because we didn't have as many people coming in for a variety of reasons, whether that was because Marion County was shut down, or we were under capacity limits, or frankly, people were just concerned about their health. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to make sure that that information was available to Hoosiers all over the state. And so we got that up and going. It's still available, and we're really proud of that work. I think people will enjoy it if they go on and see it. But it's always nice to bring people back in the building, mm-hmm. Because not only are you consuming the information and the collections that we have here in the building, but it's also a chance to interact with one another, to talk about these things and to hear what this history means to different people who may have grown up in different places or had different experiences. And I think that's where real learning and empathy grows from.
That was Jody Blankenship, President and CEO of the Indiana Historical Society. To learn more or find more information about everything we talked about today, you can go to indianahistory.org. While you're online, you can also go to RadioNOWindy.com and search Indy's connections for any of our past shows. Thank you for joining me this week, and please join me again next week. Until then, have a great week.
Radio Now 100.9's Indy Connection with Emily Metheny.